Hey guys, I hope all is well. So the Zoom call is tomorrow on the 27th. This week is kind of short because Memorial Day yesterday, but it is going to be tomorrow. The call is usually like about 30 minutes long. They're not really long for anybody else who wants to stay on. I stay on for them, but typically if you have questions, like I answer those during the call, but I am giving grade tomorrow. And I will send out a link for you to receive credit. The password is going to be room 311, like before. So I wanted to get into some of the concepts that we are going to be doing, which is greatest common factor and factoring. So for example, here in the picture here that I sent, so they say factor this expression. You need to know the greatest common factor. So that is going to be something that you need to pay attention to. So you have to think of what are the multiples of what do 21 and 6 both have in common, and the greatest number that they have in common. So the greatest number that they both have in common is 3 or negative 3, and then they both have 1x in common. So negative 3x would go on the outside, and then you basically have to think what negative 3x times what gives me negative 21, and that's negative 3x times 7. And then here, there's still another x left, and it's negative 3 times 2. And that's how they get negative 6. This is like factoring. We've done it in like 8th grade already, but I just wanted to brush up on it. Okay, and looking at these, so 2 things I always remember are you need to look at the first and the last coefficient, multiply them together. So 5 times negative 4, that is 20. What factors of 20 add up to 19? Okay, because they need to add up to 19. So in this case, I know 20 and negative 1, that gives me negative 20, and 20 minus 1 is 19. So they put it in the picture, and then from there, they factor by grouping. Okay? And I'll do an example of that now. Okay, so in Delta Math, let's take a look at this, for example. Okay, so I know between 28 and 20, they both have a 2 that goes inside. I can't think of anything higher than that. So I know that if I pull out a 2, what's left is going to be a 14 plus 10x, because 2 times 14 is 28, and 2 times 10x is 20x. Okay, let's see what I did wrong. Perfect. So this is a good example of what you should be doing. So notice my mistake. 2 times 14, that's wrong because 4 is actually bigger. The greatest common factor is 4, not 2. Okay, that's why this is wrong. Okay, my error is that I didn't realize that the greatest common factor was 4, not 2. Okay, let's do a new problem. Okay, between 7 and 4, well, the greatest common factor is just 1, but they also have an x in common. So I'll take the x out, and then what's left is 7 minus 4x, because this is x squared, so that means there's 2 x's there. Okay, so x times 7, 7x, x times 4x, 4x squared. Okay, and remember there's no number in front because there's an imaginary 1 in front of there. Okay, and that's correct. Okay, so that's just like the simpler way of, that's like a level 1 type question. There are like level 2. Okay, there's also these where you have just variables. You have to look, okay, what do these 2 have in common? Well, they both have 2 x's in common, so I can say x squared. I just pressed shift and 6, so x squared. But then what's left over? Well, there's still 1x left, and there's y to the 5th, that's still left. And then plus, well, there's only 1 left because x squared times x y to the 5th will give me x cubed y to the 5th. X squared times 1 will give me x squared. Let's submit and check it. And that's correct. Okay? You might see some of these questions on there. Okay, let's take a look at another kind of question. Okay? So there's these that you're going to have to do, like for example 27 and 30. Well, they both have 1 in common, but what's bigger than that is 3. Okay, 50 and 26. Well, they both have 2. 30 and 42. Well, they both have 2, but 21, that doesn't go in 30. 6 is bigger. Okay, so you have to do that as well. And then lastly, I want to look at factoring trinomials. There's 2 other questions I want to look at. So, for example, here, when I look at this, I know that I have x squared minus 8x minus 9. So I look and I want to find out what factors of negative 9 add up to negative 8. So the factors. So I know 1 times negative 9 will give me 9. I know negative 1 times 9 will give me negative 9. I know 3 and negative 3 will also give me negative 9. So those are my factors. Okay, but which one adds up to negative 8? Well, 3 plus negative 3, that doesn't add up to negative 8. Negative 1 plus 9, that gives me positive 8. But this one right here, 1 and negative 9. So my correct one is actually this pair, 1 and negative 9. Okay, and that ends up working out perfectly for me because I know 1 plus negative 9, that gives me negative 8x. And that's perfect because I can now, since the coefficient for this is just 1, I can now put in my answer. So I know that this is going to be x plus 1 because it's positive, and x minus 9. Okay, submit, yes. And it's correct. So you look at it, what factors of negative 9 add up to negative 8? 1 and negative 9. So that's why my answer is x plus 1 and x minus 9. Okay, you always multiply the first and the third, the first and the last, to find out what the middle, to find out what they add up to. Okay, so now let's take a look at the last type of question. Let's do a level 2. So the difference with these is notice how the coefficient here is 2. Same process though. So in this case, I multiply together 2 and negative 3. Okay, 2 times negative 3, well that gives me negative 6. Make sure you pay attention to the signs. So what factors of negative 6 give me negative 5? Well, let's see what factors we have. I have 2 and negative 3. I have negative 2 and 3. I have 6 and negative 1. And I have negative 6 and positive 1. All of those, if I multiply them together, I will get negative 6. Now I need to look and see which one is going to add up to negative 5. So if I look, let's look and find out which one goes. Okay, so 2 minus 3, well, 2, yeah, that gives me negative 1. That's not it. 3 minus 2, that gives me 1. That's not it. 6 minus 1, that's 5, but negative 6 plus 1, that gives me 5, or negative 5. So there it is. Perfect. So what I do from here is what I'm going to do is factor by grouping. So in this case, I'm going to make 2x squared. I'm going to put the little caret top. And now I'm going to put in negative 6x. Okay, because notice that's where I'm getting the negative 6 from. And I'm going to put plus 1x minus 3. So notice all I did was there was a negative 6 here and a positive 1 that I found. So I put negative 6x plus 1x, and then it still had a negative 3 at the end. So now I can factor by grouping. And factoring by grouping means that I can now look and factor this, kind of like how I did at the beginning of the video, and this. Okay, so now that I look at it, what do 2x squared and 6x have in common? Well, on this side, they have a 2 and an x in common. But what's left inside is still an x because it was x squared. And then 2 times -3 is what gives me 6. Over here, they just have a 1 in common because they only don't have one x, and then -3. Okay, perfect. Now I can see I have 2 common things here. I have x minus 3 in both cases, and that's like a little way of checking to make sure that it's correct. So from here, I do 2x plus 1. I'm going to group together 2x plus 1 and x minus 3. Okay? Okay, and that's my final answer. So we've actually, yeah, like I said, we have done this in 8th grade. It's the same concept as before in x minus 3. You just multiply the leading coefficient. So just to go over what I just did, I did the leading times the end coefficient. 2 times -3, that's -6. I need to figure out all the factors and then find out which one will add up to the middle, which is -5. Turns out -6 and 1, so it's almost like you're replacing it. So I put a -6x and a 1x. Then I factor them. So 2x squared minus 6x, they both have a 2x in common. So then what's left is x minus 3. 1x and -3, they have a 1 in common. So then all I have left is x in minus 3. Okay, and I'm going to submit my answer, and it's correct. Okay, if you're not understanding, try to watch this more than once, just so you can refresh your memory, because we have done this before. You did it in 9th grade as well as 8th grade, but you definitely did it in 8th grade as well. So just take a look at it. But here they give you an explanation, and then the explanation is also on the Google Drive here as well, just giving you an example. Okay, but Zoom call tomorrow at 2 o'clock. I would go ahead and get started. It is a short week. We only have 4 days this week. Let me know if you need anything else. Bye, guys.